we've got to be breaking things down in a way so we can actually start to deliver things. And sometimes if we have a great strategy, amazing, we can work off the back of that, but we need to start somewhere. So it's starting with those conversations with the local authorities.
Jonathan, maybe you can tackle this one from Julian Worth. How can East West Rail improve national rail connectivity, particularly for freight and logistics, as well as regional benefits between Oxford and Cambridge?
Well, I mean, as Julian knows, the connection cross-country is fabulous. We think that will definitely give some connection. I think Naomi also mentioned about Ely and the role that scheme will give to freight. So I think the cross-country, rather than arterial moves in and out of London, any infrastructure that gives us connectivity that we need nationally.
Okay, and from Graham Hillary, what plans does East West Rail have to connect key sea and cargo air hubs, delivering effective rail freight service and reducing long-haul road freight? Is that on the plans?
Well, these are conversations that we're having, but this is sort of, I'll say this is outside my remit at the moment, but these are really important conversations that we're having to make sure that we're getting our scope right.
Okay. Richard, will partnerships and dialogue between local subnational authorities and Great British Railways and national highways be meaningful, or is it about the occasional tea and biscuits? I know you do a lot of tea and biscuits, Beth, but is it about tea and biscuits, or is it more meaningful than that?
It's about tea and biscuits, but it's also about collaboration and working together. So there are areas of work where we do work together. We do have regular engagement with Network Rail and Great British Rail at the senior executive level, and we do talk around things like, Solent to the Midlands in terms of rail freight opportunities and integrated planning. So those conversations certainly do happen. I think we all recognise there's more we can do.
Okay. Maybe Jonathan, are there opportunities for rail and road to work more closely together in the context of one strategic transport network?
I think we have seen some work done on transport corridors in the UK, correct, to pick up on Richard's point, and I think how we substitute flows between road and rail and complement them, that's part of that whole piece of research. So working some more in those areas would be important, I think.
Richard?
Yeah, I agree. And I think our route strategies are quite interesting when you'll see them. They start talking around intermodality, about opportunities beyond the road. So it starts to sort of look at how we plan for our network in that way.
Okay, one for Beth. Will you prioritise people who already live on the East West Rail who don't want their stations moved because of the communities that are built around them?
It's an ongoing dialogue. I mean, it's really important that we are integrating into our communities, and so talking to those people. You referenced my tea and biscuits. It is important to talk to our local communities and have every opportunity to make sure that what we're delivering is going to be fitting into their needs.
Okay, and building up, William Harold, how well will East West Rail compete with road, including first and last mile?
This is I think back to Naomi's point about choice. We're not trying to get everyone onto East West Rail all the time. It is something, though, that I think very strongly that having lived in London and worked for Transport for London, the underground is pretty integrated into people's lives. And for me, what we want East West Rail to be is something that is integrated into people's lives as an option of how they're going to get around. And that does have to consider in a lot of detail, how do we get people to stations? It's really easy to jump in your car and get from your house to a car park. It's a bit more difficult if you have to think about things. And so that goes into how do we link into all the first mile, last mile choices? How do we use technology to make sure people understand what their route options are, and work with our local communities to deliver what is going to be important to get people onto the trains.
Okay. Richard, big challenges on the horizon regarding smart infrastructure and EV technology. I mean, do you have the skills within National Highways at the moment to make that a reality?
We've just launched our digital road strategy, which sets out our approach, and we are investing capability and capacity within Highways England. I think there's a wider bit about the supply chain and private sector supporting us in that journey. So it is certainly something, the digital agenda, important. It's important for EV, so Project Rapid, delivering and rolling out Project Rapid in terms of high EV charge across the motorway network, but it's also that future look and thinking about innovation. So, and it could be anything from how we get articulated trucks connected and autonomous to using graphene in roads to make sure we get a longer life from them. So there's a whole innovation agenda, and I think innovation needs to run through everything we do.
Okay. Building on that net zero theme, Jonathan, will Great British Railways meet the requirement for no diesel power units? This is from John Broad. No diesel power units by 2024, as the government set out to meet net zero targets.
I mean, the question about net zero is absolutely critical. How we deliver that, it seems to me, we've come to a point whereby we need rolling stock answers to that question as well as infrastructure answers to that question. And I think that's just what we need to play tunes around how that works across the country. Committed to net zero, yes. How we do it, I think we need a bit more sort of tactical astuteness to do that.
And of course, alongside that, and it's maybe a question for all of you, a cost of living crisis versus net zero, is rail likely to be an affordable choice for people going forward?
I think it has to be. Otherwise, we are just a white elephant. We are not accessible, we are not affordable, and that's what we're talking about in terms of fares and ticketing reform. It is not easy to just reduce prices overnight and say, aren't we great, and pile it high. It can work, but it's got to be done properly and got to be done well.
Because it's expensive at the moment.
Well, it can be. It can be. And I think one of the challenges that we do have is the commuter market, which generated an awful lot of our income, where there was less choice at that time pre-COVID. There is more choice now, as we've heard. So how do we deal with that difference in our income? And structurally, what will we do about that market? The leisure market is critical to us. It is back to 100%, if not more than that, of pre-COVID levels. In the leisure market, by definition, people have choice. So affordability is part of that question we have to answer.
I'm going to be controversial. I mean, I think that the competition on the railway isn't between operating companies; it's between the car. And so we need to be looking at how are we costing everything, and is it a fair competition when we look at trying to get people out of their cars and onto rail? Because there are things that are free for users when you think about driving your car. And which aren't free for users on looking at rail. So I think we need to look at transport in the round and how we pay for it, and how we, there are things that are going to be subsidized. I think transport is always subsidized, but how do we spend that subsidy in a way that's going to get the behaviors that we want is a big question, I think, for governments of the future.
There's a question here, can first last mile really work in a rural county in any other way other than by car?
I think it's a really important question, and I think that that's about what do people want in that community, because I think that or are there opportunities to put in cycle paths and things like that will get people traveling actively, and all the rest of the things that allow people to travel by bike or by other forms of transport, and they can secure the bikes where they're going to be. Okay. So it's a good question.
I want to get you for some cups of tea now. So just before I put a final question, there's a comment. I think it's a comment. It says, the community of Woburn Sands would love to be part of your accessibility board. We have the oldest demographics in Milton Keynes. You heard it here first.
Okay.
Go get them now. Right, just to wrap up, I suppose from each of you, big decisions that are going to be made tomorrow. What do you all need to hear tomorrow? Richard, what do you need to hear tomorrow?
So continuation of funding, certainty on government agenda, and that long-term vision for an integrated transport system.
Okay. Beth?
Government commitment to deliver from Bletchley to Cambridge.
Okay. And Richard?
Clarity
Jonathan,
Clarity on funding and a clarity for the direction for reform ahead.
Okay. Round of applause. Thank you very much for our three panelists. Hope it was a useful session. But also, thank you very much for some fantastic questions. My apologies if I didn't get to all of them. I would try to work my way through to as many as I possibly could. Do keep them coming, and we will get through a lot more questions of this in the sessions that follow. So thank you very much. Do go and have a cup of tea now back out there. Come back in about 20 minutes' time. Is that right, Paul? Give me a nod. About 20 minutes' time. 20 minutes' time. Do try and be here in 20 minutes' time, ready to start, and then we can crack on with the next session, which is